I'm going to go over the complete request for quote procedure that involves receiving an email, RFQ, or RFQ from another source, be it phone or chat or other platform. And once you get that RFQ, how you enter the organization, the contact, and their address information into Netsuite, and then how you, after creating the organization or updating an already existing organization in NetSuite, then turning that process into a quote that you would email to the client. So first things first, you want to determine if the organization already exists in NetSuite, and if they are a prospect or if they are a customer already. So here we've got Canyon State Wireless Inc. So what I would do is a little bit of research according to their, their address, their web address after the @ symbol for their email. So first, what I'm going to do though, prior to that, doing that little bit of research, I think it'd be best to just determine first if they exist. If they exist, then I won't have to do that research on the organization. So I'm going to go to NetSuite and type or paste in their name, see if they come up. And I'm going to try different variations of the name, since NetSuite is pretty precise about names. It's not very broad in its definitions. So I'm going to go back another one, see if maybe Canyon State exists. Nope. Now I could rest here, but instead I'm going to be really certain about it and go all the way back to Canyon and see if I find anything. And I do. So what I'm going to do is show more results. I can see there are a couple of customers, there are some prospects, there are contacts. I'm going to just click show more results to bring up the entire list, because sometimes on that pop-up box, it won't show all the contacts and customers or organizations. So I can see that here we've got contacts with their information, and here we've got a customer, and none of these are in fact the organization who is requesting a quote. However, something to take notice of is that you've got two types. You've got a customer that's already someone who has purchased something from Exponential Power, or you've got prospects. And what we are going to create in a minute is a prospect who hasn't purchased anything yet, but we want to create them. We want to create the organization, their address, and a contact, a primary contact, and then create a quote for them and send that quote to them, and all of that information will then be captured in NetSuite. So one way to tell, though, a prospect from a customer is obviously doing this kind of a search that I just did here. But if we look at the customer, I'm going to open up a customer here in a separate tab, and we want to say find out what kind of payment terms. If the organization who requested the quote already exists, we want to find out what kind of payment terms, because if they only have credit card terms and they're a US customer, they may want to switch to net 30 terms, in which case we would have to give them a commercial credit application to fill out. But we want to see what their financial terms are. And so we're going to click financial. And here we can see this organization is in fact, their terms are credit card payment. So if they wanted to change that, as I stated, we would need to give them a application to go up to net 30. And we can't do that for international. International, the only terms we can accept are wire. So they have to pay a wire payment, and they have to pay the entire amount before we ship a product for our international customers. Okay, going back where we were. So this particular RFQ organization does not yet exist in NetSuite. So now we're going to go through the process of creating the organization. And to do that, I've already copied their name here. And so now what I need to do is in NetSuite, go to Lists, Relationships, leads, and new. So this is a new lead. And now you can see from my bar up here, my menu bar, I've actually got this saved as a bookmark. So, and you can see I've got a lot of bookmarks, not a lot. Well, I do have a lot, but my main ones, I've got it right up here. And so you can see I've actually got this prospect lead form already saved that I can just quickly go here. So I don't have to do that long lists, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Because it's a web-based, URL-based system, NetSuite, we can just create bookmarks. So I could just grab this bookmark and save it and then use it in the future, reference it in the future, get to it much quicker than having to go through all these menus. Okay, so that is worth noting. And now I'm going to put in our new organization who wants a quote. And now is when I need to do also a little bit of research. So that's, as I mentioned earlier, I would just grab this part of their email and see if that's going to take me to an existing company website. And it does. If it doesn't, then the other way to go about it is to actually just do a Google search for their company and, you know, look for address verification. Just do a little bit of background work to see how valid this RFQ is, and to get an idea for the salesperson too. So they'll be able to go to this link and see what this client is up to and what possibilities there may be. So what I'm going to look at here is the address here. Because we need a shipping address, and if they wanted net 30 streams, we would also need a payment address. And let's see here. I'm going to just see if they have that same address available on their website. So the next thing I'll do is go to About. Although first, let's go back here and let's add their web address to the lead. And now let's see what kind of addresses we have here. Okay, so nothing. So then what I might do is copy their name, put it up there and say address. Basically, I'm just kind of doing some verification, which would be done if they wanted net 30 terms anyways, and even credit card terms. But I'm just kind of doing a little bit of background work to see what the situation is with them. I can see the address is different. So because I don't see like a corporate headquarters address, which I could type that in here. So it looks like this is their main address. However, that's not the address here. So then you've got a decision to make. At this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with this address and assume that that's the shipping address. And after I get into communication with this contact, John Wallen, then we can update and make correct addresses down the road or add addresses. This may be a ship to address. This may be their store address, something like that. Right now, I'm going to make an assumption, and the assumption is going to be that John wants me to use this address for this company. And again, that's just a decision that has to be made by the person inputting them. Now, what we also can do is look at, again, with their website. There's nothing about them on their about page, and there's not a great deal of information here, but we can kind of figure out a little bit about what they are. So it looks like they are a reseller of wireless, of primarily phone and wireless technologies. So we need that information because we need to next fill out their category. And are they an end user for their product? Let's see here. So they want a quote for 6,500. And he's, I could have even looked there. I should have looked there first. We are a reseller in Arizona, of course, we know that. The end user is a state public safety agency. So it's more than just wireless. they looks like they offer more than just wireless technology. They also do some reselling of other equipment. In this case, they want to resell our 6500. So in that case, I'm going to put them down as a reseller. And then the next thing, primary business unit. This is for technology and equipment. Customer sector. From the research we gathered, we should be able to come up with something here. And if you can't find something that matches very closely, let's see, we can always go with reseller, which I think we're going to need to. Um, they're not really a telecom, even though they sell wireless, so that certainly would not work. But it's best to just go through and see what is their closest match. In this case, reseller. Okay, so our next step after we've done those is to go to sales and sales team. And we need to determine who the salesperson is for the RFQ. And in our case, this is Arizona. So that happens to be, I know the salesperson, the TE salesperson is Jim Lamb. So I'm going to type Jim down here, select his name, and primary. Have to always have a primary. Otherwise, this quote will not end up on it. There are many reasons why you must have a primary. And one of them is that in order for Jim to see that this quote was made on his behalf, so it shows up on his desktop, primary must be selected. But there are other reasons as well, having to do with purchases that are, this just needs to be selected. There must always be a primary salesperson. And then let's add him. And so that is set. Now address, we're going to need to add an address. And we already did our research for that. So we are just going to, as I determined, we're going to use this address. And we're just going to copy the zip code because Netsuite will fill in the rest once we click away from it. And let's just double check, make sure that was correct. Sierra Vista, that is correct. Let's say okay. And default shipping, yes. Default billing, yes. Those might change down the road after we get in communication with the contact for this organization. And the last step is relationships. So here's where we're going to add our contact. Okay, now I'm going to just clean something up real quick. He had his name in all caps, so I just fixed it quickly like that. And next, we want his phone number. And role, another key thing, just like you have a primary salesperson, you must have a primary contact for a quote as well. So we're going to select him as our primary contact for this organization. And let's see here, do we have a title? No title. We're going to grab his email. We can leave that all uppercase. That's fine. And all that information looks correct. So let's add him. At this point, we've created the organization and the contact for this lead. So we're going to click Save. All right, that is the first part of our RFQ process. And our next is going to be to quote the item that they want. And the item he wants quoted is the 6500, and he wants 2 units. Okay, now just to kind of keep things a little bit quicker, I'm going to just copy the 6500 so I can use that text. Now we've got the organization is in as a lead in NetSuite. And here we can see the actual key terminology. If we wanted to set them up then to buy the 6500s, we would then send this off to customer service saying, please turn this number, Canyon State Wireless, with that C017295 into a credit card customer or a Net 30 customer. And then once customer service has completed that process, we could then put that this quote that we're about to create onto the customer services desktop as a PO to process into a sales order. And we'll look at that on another occasion. So at this point, though, we just completed creating the organization and the contact. Now we're going to quote what they would like from the RFQ. So we're going to select quote. And quote title. Here's where I could paste in 6500, although I've already got it listed there. Transaction date, we don't need to worry about. Quote date, due date is today. We're going to do it today. And the expected close, we want to match the expires. We want to give, we don't expect him to get back to us today. So we're going to give him 30 days. So let's go forward to 4-1. Remove, include, and forecast. That just is something that's been requested by the salespeople. They would prefer that not to be selected. So I'm going to do that. And let's see, everything else looks good. Business unit, tech equipment, correct. Let's just double check, make sure our sales team carried over. Yep, and you can see Jim Lamb's a primary. Let's look at our relationship. Does that carry over? Yep. All that information is correct. So shipping, we need to check shipping, and we want to make sure that the address is correct, and we want to select a lead time. So in this case, the 6500 I know is in stock, so I'm going to say 1 week after receipt of order. And we want to always select something here for the lead time. Otherwise, when they receive the quote, they'll be like, well, is it in stock? How long is it going to take until we can get it delivered to us once we pay? So it's always vital to select a lead time and not to leave it at the default. And at that point, then the last thing we need to do is actually add the items. And I'm going to just go up to my title, copy that, since that's the main item. Put it in here, and it happens to be a kit. So I'm going to select that. And now you can see the pricing. You can see AvaTax is going to take care of the taxation. Once we are in communication with him, if he wants to go forward with a purchase, then we would deal with the shipping. Are they going to cover the shipping cost, or should we get a quote for shipping and add that to this quote? Base price, he said he's a reseller, so we can give him 10% off if we'd like. That is determined by the salesperson. I'm going to leave it at base price. Although take that back, he did say, yep, he said we are a reseller, so I am authorized for resellers to go to 10% discount. So I'll select 10% discount for him. He did request reseller pricing. And then once that looks good, I will add it. Now, the other thing we want to add is for certain of our units, not everything, but the 6500, our hydrometers, as well as our H2, we want to add a calibration certificate. And that information we add not as part of the quote itself, and you'll see that in a minute. So I'm going to add what's called a description item, and then I'm going to add optional. In other words, they don't need to buy this item, but if they'd like to, they can. And that's what they're going to see here. So they're going to see that this isn't included. There's no cost associated with this because it's not part of the quote. It's just a suggestion. If they want to purchase a calibration certificate, it's available for $350 price per unit, not included in quote. So if they get back and say, oh, I'd like that certificate, then we just edit the quote and we add a TE cal. We would add right there, TE cal cert, and that would then be priced into the quote. But I'm not going to do that. Okay, so now our quote is looking complete. Let's just check our pricing. We can see our availability of on hand. Here's our how many we have on hand to sell. This is the oh, they wanted, oops, I almost made a mistake, which is a good thing. I should always go back and check. So please give us a quote for 2 units. So let's change the quantity to 2 and then say okay. We don't have to change the description of the certificate because I already included priced per unit. So if they want to purchase that, it would be an additional $700. And now double check, everything's looking good. So let's save our quote. And Netsuite is thinking. And once it is completed, we can see here's our quote number that's been assigned to it. It's been assigned to right here, this organization. Now we want to email this to our client. We could also, though, if this were something like if this were something we wanted the salesperson instead of me in support to handle, then we could create a task. So we could go up to here, create a task, and we would name it and then assign it to Jim. And we would assign this task to him and we could leave any kind of directions for him. And then what would happen is he would see this, he would be tasked this, he'd get an email alert and he'd see it on his desktop. And then it would basically, he would know that he needs to email this quote to the client and take over from there. I'm not going to do that, but I just wanted you to be aware of tasks. And I'm going to cancel this. And I'm going to show you quickly using this link here what that, if I had created that task, what it would look like. So here's a task I created for a salesperson, Jim, right here. So if I view the task, and I handle all the quotes that are $5,000 or less, but if it's more than that, I would task the quote to Jim or another salesperson, and they would then be responsible for sending the quote to the client. So in this case, here's the task. So all Jim would do once it was assigned him, he would go to related records and he would see information here about the contact. He would also see the contact's information here. He could click on that and see it. So if I go there, I can see the contact's information that was entered, or he just goes to the quote. So there's the actual transaction quote, and he would then do the mail process. He would then click email. But that would be an assigned task. I just wanted to go over that to make everyone aware of that possibility as well, since that is utilized. What I'm going to do, though, this is under, I'm sorry, this is over. Normally, I would have tasked this to, everything I just showed you, I would normally do because this is over $5,000. However, in this tutorial, I'm going to email the client myself, and I'll just, can just let Jim know that. He won't mind. So I'm going to go in this instance and click email. And now the email to the client. Let me bring that up. So I'm going to copy his email address, put it here. And I want to know, I want Jim to be CC'd on this. Jim Lamb, let me just, since he's the salesperson, here we go. So I want him to be emailed, so I'm going to add him since this is his client. So that's a key step. Then I go to message, and the template that I always use for T&E quotes is quote submittal 2021. But then I go down and I add some more text. So it'll say, thanks for the opportunity to quote this job. And then I can add additional text. Let's say, I could add, please confirm your shipping address because I had an issue with that. Or I could say, any number of things. We do not have payment terms. Would you like to? In fact, I'll use that kind of a text for this. That would be a good one. So let's see here. Well, I don't want to take up time doing that. Since this is an example, and I don't really need to in this situation. If they are going to go forward, then we can worry about payment terms. Normally, for an initial quote like this, we would not discuss payment terms. That'll happen in communications down the road. So then attachments, we don't have to attach the quotes separately. So what I'm going to do though is attach the cut sheet. So SBS 6500, and there's the cut sheet, and then add it. Okay, so I'm just going to double check. So we've got our message. Thanks for the opportunity to quote this job. And it'll mention the 6500. Again, I could have added additional text. It's specific to the quote. And make sure we got our recipient. Everything's looking good. Jim, the actual salesperson, is CC'd. Now I'm going to click merge and send. And then we'll see the information. I hit a key by mistake there, but on my keyboard, which is why I got that message. You wouldn't normally get that message. And now we can check to make sure everything went according to plans, since I got that little pop-up, but it's a good idea to check anyways. If we click on the communication tab, we'll see all communications with the organization and the contacts within that organization. So we can see there were 2 attachments, and we can also view it this way. I'm going to view it this way for now. And we can see here's the message that was sent. The recipients, Jim Lamb was CC'd. And here's our attachment, so we can take a look at the quote that we sent. And here we've got our addresses, proposed shipping. So we were clear about that. 6,500 is 2. Oh, that would have been a good message. I should have mentioned the reseller discount. He requested it and we included it. So normally I was kind of rushing to get through this a little bit. I should not have. I should have included, that would have been a nice message to mention to him in the body of the email. I've included a reseller discount. That would have been a message to include. It's always good to personalize those emails, and that would have been something nice to include. So quantity 2, $4,495 a piece, and that's our total. And here's the calibration. We can see it mentions how they definitely don't want to, they're going to want payment terms. They're not going to want to pay credit card, because if they do, they're going to be charged a surcharge for credit transactions over 5,000. And then we can see the actual sales rep is Jim, so his information will be down there. So everything went according to plan. We could check the cut sheet if we want, but you can take my word for it. And that is the entire RFQ procedure.